Today we are looking at the sharpshooter veteran and the best all-round build that you can take for this class. This is a very versatile class. Actually, very surprised when I played this at just how good at everything it is. Despite being called the sharpshooter, this class is absolutely no stranger to getting into the thick of things and demolishing hordes of heretics. We're going to break down the talents or feats that we're going to choose and why. We'll talk a little bit about why we didn't pick the other ones. We'll also take a look at the loadout, and I'll try and work in some gameplay examples of these things working as well, so you can get an idea of just exactly how this class feels to play. So jumping straight into the feats page here, let's take a quick look at our passive just so we understand what this class does inertly by itself. There's a frag grenade. We also have an aura that replenishes ammo when we kill an elite. We have a ultimate which enters a stance and equips our ranged weapon if we don't already have it on, designates enemies aka highlights them, and we do 50% additional damage while in this stance. We also have a passive in which we do 15% increased weak spot damage. This is mostly headshots, but some other enemies, their weak spots are in other places. And we have 40% more ammo than the other classes in the game. Starting with our level 5 talent, we've gone for Accelerating Takedown, which is replenish 10% toughness on ranged weak spot kill. So every time you get a headshot, you're going to replenish a ton of toughness. Out of the three, I would say this is just the more consistent. This one here allows you to generate it when you're away from enemies, but this is very hard to maintain given the nature of the game. And this one, Confirmed Kill, is based on elite kills. And again, there's not always elites around, so, you know, in those situations, it just wouldn't be worth anything whatsoever. This is always useful. For our level 10 talent, we've got Demolition Stockpile. This replenishes a grenade every minute. It recently got nerfed and doesn't sound that amazing, but this is actually a lot more powerful than it seems, and it synergizes really well with another talent that we are going to look at in just a moment. The other two increase reload speed. This is if you reload with ammo still in the clip, and this one allows you to do 20% increased damage based on the distance between you and the target. Now, there's nothing wrong with going with tactical reload. It feels really nice to use. And this one, Sniper, like with the arm's length talent here, it's just really hard to maintain that distance. So I find that you don't get a lot of uptime through it. So it's between these two, and this one I would say is definitely the stronger. Our level 15 talent is Demolition Team. You and your allies in coherency, i.e. like that are near each other, have a 5% chance to gain a grenade on enemy kill. And this is any enemy kill. So this is a very, very frequent proc and allows you to just throw grenades like a lunatic. And, you know, in combination with this, you get a lot of grenades. Bio-optic targeting is also a very popular pick. Not my personal favorite, but it designates all non-Ogrin elites and specialists as priority targets. What this means is that they are highlighted orange for the 5-second duration of your ultimate ability. And then for covering fire, this is actually a really good talent, but just really hard to make good use of. When you kill an enemy, any of your friendlies that are near that enemy will get 10% of their toughness back. This is fantastic on higher difficulties, but requires a bit of higher coordination from the team. Next, for our level 20 talent, we're going for Camo Expert. This is a fantastic talent once you pick it up. While standing still, enemies are significantly less likely to target you. Now, this applies to ranged enemies. It doesn't seem to make any difference to melee enemies. They will still run up and hit you in the face, but it allows you to stand there in pretty much open territory and just fire down at the scab gunners, which is going to be a just humongous help to your team. Duck and Dive, now this plays in with another talent. There's a lot of synergy with Deadshot, which is a talent from the 25 tree. Other than that, it doesn't feel fantastic for me. Perhaps if you were going for some sort of melee orientated build, this would be the one to go for. And then we have Unwavering Focus. This is a 75% damage reduction to your toughness from ranged attacks, but only during your ultimate, which is 5 seconds. I don't know why this is here. You know, just not getting shot at all by having Camo Expert is a 100% damage reduction permanently. Obviously, it's only while you're standing still, but it's just, in my eyes, infinitely better than this. If anyone's come up with an interesting way to use this, I'd really like to hear. I'm not trying to say it's, you know, completely unusable, but for me, you know, it just seems that Camo Expert is a much more powerful pick. Our level 25 talent is Frag Storm. Now frag grenades, when you have this talent, apply 8 stacks of bleed to any enemy that they hit. And this can deal a significant amount of damage to higher HP enemies like Ogrins and bosses. And we're going to try and show you the number breakdown here on some of the enemies in the meat grinder, just to show you exactly what that looks like. In combination with all the other grenade talents that we have, this is something that you can make regular use of, and on higher difficulties is extremely powerful. And even at the lower difficulties, it's just a fantastic tool for melting high level Ogrins or also bosses. The alternatives are Deadshot, and Deadshot on paper sounds really good, really good. 25% crit chance and a 60% sway reduction, but you lose 10% of your stamina per second while you're aiming down the sights. So this means it works for 10 seconds and you basically can never sprint. There's also a lot of situations where you'll use up all of your stamina by aiming down sights, and then an enemy will get, up into melee range, or you'll get swarmed by a horde and you'll have no stamina to get out of that situation or block attacks and just die. So unfortunately, though this feels really good to use when you can, it just leaves you very vulnerable to situations outside of your control. And again, that's a lot of the time in Darktide. Finally, one after another, 30% reload speed on elite kill. Now this is actually not bad, depending on the gun that you're using. This could be a really good option for you to go for. For example, the bolt gun, very slow reload time, but excellent elite killing capabilities. Good combination there, but very specific use case for this one. The grenade one I feel is just way more versatile, so that's why we've gone with it. And for our ultimate, we've gone for counterfire. This is 25% weak spot damage during volley fire, aka increased headshot damage during our ult. Volley fire also designates all scab shooters as priority targets, so it highlights all shooters for you to see and kill. Killing a designated enemy during this ultimate also refreshes its duration, and you can maintain an extremely high uptime with this particular talent through a wide variety of situations. Now most of the level 30 talents actually, whoopsie daisy, they actually have more or less this same theme. So volley fire reloads your weapon, replenishes 60% toughness. Killing a designated enemy during volley fire refreshes its duration. Now this one is fantastic for a more defensive build where you're taking a lot of damage and also shooting for a very long time, emptying your gun. Again, if you're using a lower ammo capacity weapon, this may be the one you want to go for. And then the bigger they are, I'm assuming it's the harder they fall, but this is a anti-boss build. Does more or less the same thing as the other two, but again, it's built around targeting Ogrins and bosses. Depending on what you're running up against, either of these could fit a particular sort of style of play, but I find that this one here, counterfire, is just by far the one that I get the most use out of. And I will demonstrate in the meat grinder here, hopefully just I'll add a recording in here of me just maintaining an insane amount of uptime on this, and this is not hard to replicate in game. Now that we've finished with the talent choices, we're going to move on to the weapon loadout. Now this isn't as exciting as I think some people are going to hope it's going to be. Actually, these weapons you can acquire pretty early on, and we'll start with the ranged weapon. And for that weapon, we'll be going with the Cantrell Mark 12 Infantry Lasgun. Let me know if I even said that right. The reason we're going to pick this gun is for a number of reasons. It has very high damage. If you find like even a half decent version of this gun, you'll be one-shotting most elites and specials with a good headshot up until about, I would say, Heresy, and at that point you may be looking at 2 shots. The capacity of this gun is insane. Sometimes I find myself only needing 1 ammo pack for an entire mission. This is good for your entire team, so it allows them to use more, ammo hungry guns like the bolt gun and not be fighting you for ammunition all the time. The Torchlight is, even though it's like a pretty boring special, I find it incredibly useful, especially on some of the darker maps. And once we get the global conditions that have reduced visibility and like the blackouts as well, this would become even more useful, especially for a sharpshooter. It's semi-automatic, It has a decent rate of fire, and it's one of the few guns in the game with a red dot sight. So it's just very easy to use and does incredible damage. Has one of the highest time to kills out of any of the guns in the game. And this is available pretty much immediately as soon as you unlock the shop. And then for our melee weapon, we are going with the Moniturum Mark III Power Sword. Now, the Power Sword is an iconic weapon and is probably not a surprise pick from anyone who's used it. This thing is insane. It does immense cleave damage. It will chop hundreds of things in half when charged. And it's pretty easy to charge up. You usually get 3 good hits out of it. But my god, this thing has the best wave clear I have ever seen. It's not great for defending. You know, if you end up with some elites on you and you try blocking with this thing, they're going to get through and stagger you pretty quickly. But geez, yeah, this thing is just a damage beast. You can even go through armor with this with relative ease. So this you know, covers some of the shortcomings of going with a las gun. I should have brought this up. The las gun has one weakness, and that is armored targets. Whether or not you want to use a grenade instead of this, you at least have the option of going with the grenade or running in with the power sword and just slicing bits off of Ogrins. This is a fantastic weapon to use. I could almost just talk about how much I like this for an entire video. It's just very nice. It's a very, very nice weapon, and you unlock it around about level 12. Oh, and just as a side note, when you're purchasing weapons, I would say the primary stat to hone in on would be damage. I found that most of the other ones don't seem to make too much of a difference in the feel of the weapon, but having that higher damage value is just far, far better for these two particular weapons, as they do what they do without, you know, needing too much of the other things here. And that's it. That is my ultimate veteran sharpshooter guide. I do have one for a Select Preacher as well. If you want to check that out, I will try and use YouTube to link it to you. I don't know how that works. And yeah, if you've enjoyed it, don't forget to leave a subscribe thingy-mabob because it helps the channel, I think. And yeah, that's about it. I'll catch you later.